Hello everyone, welcome and thank you for joining me. This is Lee with Lee's Trees, and today we're working on my large bald cypress. We're going to be doing a trim, of course, on the branches and a repotting. It's been a year or more since it's been repotted and it's in bad need of one. This, I believe, is my chosen front. The way this pot is made, it's a really nice pot, but with having the 3 drainage holes or 3 feet, I wouldn't choose having, one of the feet facing me as a front. I would have chosen one of the broad sides as a front. So I believe that is my front. Going around to the left side, to the back, to the right side, and back to the front right there. And as you can see the light and everything in the camera lens here. I'll zoom in as we get started on some of this and get rid of that, but for the moment I have to have it pulled back so far because the tree is so large you couldn't see everything. Now I'm pretty sure, I don't want this big sucker branch down here, so we're going to take that off. Clean that up a little bit better. And let me grab some scissors for the rest of this. So we've got these 2 branches are crossing. I'll take the one farthest or closer into the trunk off. Actually, it might be better to use these to get up in there and get that flush cut instead of the scissors. However, I do see that there's a bud coming out this way, so I do want to come and trim this. I might leave this other bud here, but trim that piece. This one is coming somewhat straight up, but there's another bud coming forward down here, so I'm going to cut that there. I'm going to cut this one here, again to have everything start coming out that way. So for this one, we've got this piece in here that can go. This one's coming off the bottom somewhat, so we'll take it. Have all these little suckers in here on the main trunk we can take off. This one coming off the top isn't needed. And this one off the top in here we'll take. Actually, let me reach in here and clean that up a little better. So now this branch, let's see where I've got some buds coming out. So it might come out to there. This one I'll take to there. Actually, so there's a little piece of the bud right there at the very end. I'll just rub off. And this one we will, let's see, probably want one going out. So we'll go to there. So there's a bud going that way. Go back to my main front piece, and the front might end up changing. Of course, I do have this big scar piece here in the front. Well, I can see I've got 2 branches coming from the same spot right there. I know I'm not going to want those. I don't believe I really want this one. Again, it's also an eye poker coming straight out at me. So it needs to go. This one's going straight up. So now up to this branch. I can take these off. And I'm trying to get some ramification. You can see I've got my larger branch here. So I will keep that one and take this one off on the inside there. Okay, now let me adjust the camera. Alright, I've changed the camera and zoomed in a little bit here so you can get a better view. And we're going to come up to this spot up here. And again, I've got a couple branches all coming from the same area. And so we're going to take off all these smaller inside sucker branches. Got a little bit of a stub we can clean up there. Got a little bit of a stub down here we can clean up. Not sure if you can see that one or not since I've zoomed in. Probably not. Now these 2, so there's another branch right above it that can go. So this one coming out, it looks like there's some buds back in there, so we'll come to here. And I've got a couple buds going sideways, so I'll go to that one. I do need a branch coming in the back here, so I'm going to leave this one, and let's see, which do I want to, where do I want to trim it at to get a some ramification and get it to split side to side. Give it, well, you know, if we're going to, I did bring these in a little bit short. If I want a conical view on this, I should have left those a bit longer, but then again, they're going to be sprouting out quite a long ways. So I think I'm just going to come to here. So now that I come back up, let's see how this, I hope you can, yeah, you can just barely see that, I believe, where I was working. So these two branches are pretty much at the same level, so we're going to take those off, or that smaller one. Come back to the front, give it a look. I know that one looks a little above it, but in time we might end up putting some wire or seeing what happens with it. Actually, I think I'll just take it off. Cut that back. Actually, that looks better. All right, so let's keep working our way up. So I've got this bigger branch here and this other smaller one, and I want to start getting some taper going. So here I'm going to go ahead and take the large one off and leave the small one. And I have another one coming from the same height as that smaller one, so we're going to take it. This one's almost coming straight at us. Now here's where I was thinking of making a hard decision, is right here at the apex, because I think the tree is getting a little too tall for what I have in mind for it. Watching my friend Patricia O'Connor with the bonsai balcony and her trio of bald cypresses, and they have this very sharp long point taper to them, and they look great, but that's not what I see for this tree. For this tree I see more of a shorter bullet shaped style rather than the long taper. So let me get some larger cutters out, and I have a small branch back here, and I have this one here or this one. Not that I think either of those will end up becoming a new leader, but if I cut up here just above them and get a new sprout from right in there, then I can start making me a new leader from that. And so I think that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to go ahead and take the whole top off. So here we go, big cut coming up. Just took the whole big top off of that. And now that just leaves these two little branches here. And there's a few buds right there we'll prune back to. A few buds right here we'll prune back to. Okay, so that's a pretty hard chop on our bald cypress. But as you can see, I'll bring these in close a little bit. Hopefully you can see it is starting to just green up. So this is the perfect time to be doing this, and see if we can get some more sprouting coming from right there. So now I'm curious to see what the old wound looks like. So I'm going to take, actually, hold on just a moment. There we go. And set my little piece of paper down on top of the pot here so that the stuff that falls off will hopefully hit the paper and not mix in with the soil. So let's take, oop, well, I was probably going to end up doing that anyway. But yeah, let's see what this old cut putty looks like. And I'm actually surprised this stuff is still kind of soft. I would have thought it would have hardened up over the last couple of years, or a year and a half or more. Since I removed, this is where I removed the air layer piece from. So eventually I do intend to carve this down smaller to get a little better taper. But before I do that, I want it to roll over on the inside a little bit better. So let me turn this a little more and try and clean up the bark here. I'm going to use my tool here. I'm going to try and scrape the inside bark of the wound, the cambium layer, and try and get that to start to roll over and come inside some and fill in. So let me come all the way up to the top. There we go. I might have gone past the cambium layer a little bit, but that's okay. It'll fill in. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, we need to come all the way down and do the whole circle. Get in here with the knob cutters and see if I can remove some of that hollow dead wood in the center to give room when it does roll over so that it doesn't get too large of a bulge there. I almost wonder if I should take that in a little bit more now, but I'll wait. Simply because I know I've got a lot more work to do on it. Let's see if I can carve this out a tiny bit more right in there. Of course, it'd also be helpful if I had some actual professional carving tools. So we'll get started with the repotting here in a few moments. Move my camera very carefully here and show you the carnage cam. There we go. There's our carnage cam so far, and we haven't even started on the roots. So let me set up for the dirty work and I'll be right back. All right, so like I said, I've changed the shooting angle here so you can see what we're doing. I've zoomed in. The tree is not tied into the pot, so it shouldn't be too hard to get out. And when I planted this tree in this pot, I tried using a giant piece of window screen here, and I don't know if I'm going to go back with that. I probably won't. I'll probably end up putting a piece of mesh in the pot here, but we'll do that in a little bit. Dump that out a little, and we'll set our pot to the side. We will be putting it back in the same pot. I really love this pot, made by Rob Wallace. Oh yeah, look at all that. Look at all those. Okay, good. Not damaging any branches as I lay it over. You can see the piece of window screen here, hopefully. So I can tell you right now, seeing all the work it's going to take to get this piece of window screen off of these roots, and I'll get started with that. Ooh, careful, careful. That I will definitely not be using a piece of window screen again. I'm going to have to get me a new set of these to work on actual branches. These have got something where they don't actually close all the way most of the time, so that's why I'm not worried too much about starting to bring them in on the roots and cutting into the rock and gravel with them. I knew that they weren't all that great, and that there was something wrong with them. Okay, and there we go. There's our root mass, or a big chunk of it, in our window screen. And this is planted in Akadama pumice and lava, and I intend to reuse this soil. There's nothing wrong with it. As I look in through it, it doesn't look like it's broken down too bad. Everything still looks good. Again, just because bald cypresses grow roots so prolifically, that's why we want to take them and root prune them every so often. And if I am going to reuse this though, I want to get most of these roots out of here. I don't really want to have to try to sift this, because I have a really small sifter. Speaking of which, I don't usually sift my soil or my mixtures when I mix it up. As I'm sure a few of you have noticed, that this almost has two different root planes. We've got a lower one and somewhat of an upper one. And that was one of the things I had intended on addressing with today's repotting. And I'm going to end up losing a whole great big chunk of this, because I'm going to get rid of this part down here, hopefully. If I can see how to do that, and hope I don't lose too much root. I shouldn't. These things root so well, and I'm going to end up losing, it looks like, a good half the root ball right there if I take all that off. And the reason I never did it before when I repotted this is simply because I didn't have the tools to do it with. But now I do, and so since it needs to get taken care of, this is the time to do it. So let me continue to try to free up some of the roots a bit, and then we'll have to get to that cut. Little saw, this is the one thing I didn't have a couple years ago. So I don't know, now you won't be able to see this because the root ball's in the way, and I can't really move the camera, and it'll be easier for me to try to cut it like this. Okay. Well, it's done now. So since I have this one root, I know it is coming at a crazy angle off the bottom of this other root, but I think I can straighten that out as when I put it in the pot. So I'm going to go ahead and come in here and cut that. And actually, let me use these. And that cuts that piece free. So on this side, again, I've got a whole bunch of smaller roots coming off this main one here. Let's see what happens if we just try a little brute force. Okay. So there are some finer roots and some thicker roots. And now there's our tree. And it never even occurred to me until I started actually cutting into this to maybe try and repot that as a stump cutting and see if anything sprouts from it. And I might think on that in a bit, but for now I'm going to need to move it out of the way. Alright, I've put a piece of screen in the pot. And again, let me pick my front. Oh, this pot, this has a little bit of algae on it. That's not the natural, that green is not the natural color of the pot. I believe that was the front I wanted. The foot has a little bit darker glazing coming up here compared with the other few sides. And this big swish right through there. So that's going to be my front right there. And now that I've got this, of course, I'll have my front of my tree. Or do I want to change? Well, if I change it, then that makes that an eye poker branch. If I turn it a tiny bit that way and make that my front, that one almost becomes an eye poker, but that's okay because it can get out of there easier than that one or that one. So now for the roots, and I know this looks like it's going to dry out a little, but that's okay. Bald cypresses are drought tolerant. So you can see there's several fine roots coming off from up in here. So I'm going to shorten this back. And I'm going to shorten that one back and leave that one root right there. That looks good. So let me bring this one. I see a root in here that we can leave. And let's just give those a cut. Again, that I'm not going to worry with. That looks like it will stand up okay. So I'm going to leave that just so I have a lot of fine root, but right there where that thing gets all twisty, we'll take that part off. And there's a little spot here we'll take off. And that's okay, that'll start to circle around. I can't really help it, but no matter what I do, but I don't want to cut it back all the way to there because I want to leave some fine roots. So now, do I want to try to decide, do I want to maybe try to tie this in a tiny bit just so it doesn't tip over? I might do that after I get it soil on it and see how it sits in the soil. But before I forget, okay, I've got that big cut up there. Hopefully that'll scar over. I want to put some rooting hormone and some cut putty on that big seal there since it's going to be in the soil. So give me just a moment. There we go. I'm going to give the roots a little bit of a spritz there. Oh, I might not have wanted to spritz that, but big wad of cut putty to try and apply. Okay, there we go. Move that. Actually, maybe I have just another tiny little piece for the very top there. So I'm using, of course you're not going to see the front of the pot, but I'm using that sort of almost angle right through here as my new front. Okay, let's get some soil in here and see how it goes. I grabbed my rooting hormone because I was thinking of trying to put some on the back side. Now that we can see that that is going to stand there a little bit. See if we can get some more roots to start coming out over here. So for that, just in case, of course I know I've got my cut putty I just put on there. But let me what I want to do is sort of scar it up just so what little bit of rooting hormone I put on here will actually get to the greenish cambium layer. That's, from what I understand, that's where it's actually going to sprout roots from. So as you can see, I made a few little scratch marks right there. And to that, I'm not even going to try to be gentle with it. I'm just going to, actually let me moisten it a tiny bit. I don't know if I should be touching that or not, but I don't want to, trying to very gently so it doesn't become too powdery. Okay, so front of my pot, front of my tree. The tree is standing there a tiny bit. Let's get those roots tucked back up under the soil. It is leaning back a little. We can lean it back up to us a tiny bit with some more soil here. Okay. Put the rooting hormone away. Now let's see if we can, without making too much of a mess, very carefully. So the tree is a tiny bit wobbly in the pot, and actually because there's nothing on the back side, it has leaned back some. So let me chopstick more up under here. So I think I am going to end up having to put a tie down wire in. And so let me, I know I've got a few holes right down here, just so you can see what we're doing. Like I say, and I've got a few holes down in here. And let me pick the right size wire. That looks good. Yep, I've got a hole here and a hole there. Or I've got another one over there. I think that's going to be the better of the two, so that I can reach way over. So I need to come in some to get this. Where's my... There they are. I'm simply going to do is just gently feed it up through. See, I'm actually just missing that one root that I need to catch to tie it in. So I've got another hole over here. Perfect. Okay. Just so our pot doesn't fall off. See, now the wire can actually reach and catch the top of the root a tiny bit. So make sure I don't have a lot of slack on the bottom there. There we go. That tightened up in there. So I hope that's going to catch that root. And pull up and then tighten. And then let's get our slack out of the way. Okay. Actually, wait, do I need to tighten it? One more, maybe? I think that's going to work. Now I just want to make sure I pack some soil up under here. I think that was just a piece of soil underneath one of the feet that was cracking. At least I'm hoping that's what that was. Okay, I think that's as well as I'm going to get it at the moment. It can always be repotted when or the next time we repot it and root prune it, we can always adjust the angle again at that time. I do want to put a tiny little bit of extra soil on top just to keep the soil level up against the back there some as that settles a little bit. Since this other scooper, my big scooper, is a little dirty, I'll use my medium. And we'll just add us a little bit of a top dressing of Akadama pumice and lava to it. I'm going to take it outside, give it a really good watering here in a few moments. First I'll give you a final spin so you can see what it looks like. And then just put it back on the bench and make sure we take really good care of it. And I'm actually going to be using, I purchased some of the water wicking cord. So I'll be using some of that on this to make sure it always stays well and good and wet throughout the summer. And here we are for our final spin. Again, here is our front. To the left side, to the new back, to the right side, and back around to the new front. Hello everyone, it's Sunday, May 24th. It's been a few months since we did our massive root reduction and repot on our Bald Cypress. I have it sitting here in my greenhouse for the moment. We've been having a lot of rain, and so it's been really wet, and I didn't want to try to bring it indoors. A car going by here. And I've been having some trouble finding moss in my area where I live around me, so I ended up purchasing some online from a company called Moss and Stone Gardens. This is just a little bit of what I received. This is a pincushion moss. I did get a lot more than that, and you'll see some of that in some future videos that I've been adding to all my trees, but you don't really need to see me mossing up a bunch of trees. But I just wanted to take a quick moment and show you that even with all the massive root reduction, the Bald Cypress is still alive. I won't say that it's really thriving, but it is alive, and it is growing. So there we go. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.